Good evening, everyone. Hi. Bob Alberti, the police chief here in Easthampton. Father Bill Hamilton to my left, and Captain William Kelly. We had a pretty robust award ceremony tonight, so as long as nobody comes up here and smacks me, we should be good. So welcome again. This is our 9th award ceremony for the Easthampton Police Department. This is a very important night for our organization that recognizes accomplishments by our officers, to recognize accomplishments by our officers, community members, and partners over the last several years. Due to COVID, the awards presentation tonight are from the years of 2015 to 2020. So the next year, God willing, we'll catch up on the last 3 years. We typically have every 3 years. I'd like to thank the city leadership for being here and your continued support of our men and women of your police department. I'd like to thank our awards committee, especially Detective Andrew Brouillard, for all of his hard work. I'd like to recognize a couple of people in the crowd. I thought I saw Representative Dan Carey. Dan, if you're here, stand up, give us a wave. Thank you. City Council President and Acting Mayor, currently, Alona Gomez. Representing the Mayor's Office, Lindsay Mailer. City Councilor Owen Zaret's here. Am I missing anybody else? If I am, I apologize. Mr. Easthampton, Pat Bruff's in the back. I'd like to now call upon Easthampton Police Chaplain William Hamilton to open our ceremony with a blessing. I can never remember which one's a benediction and which one's a...
Sure.
For all the times that we've done this, he still can't get it. But that's okay. Just as I give this invocation, just my own personal thanks to Chief Alberti and the department for allowing me to be their chaplain. It has been a great run for me, great experience, and one of the best departments over the years, now almost 40 years that I've been involved in public safety. This is my home family, to say the least, and the job that these men and women do day in and day out is just outstanding, incredible, with such great integrity. It's really proud to be part of this department, and I thank them for their continued efforts and their valor to put their lives on the line for all of us each and every day. So let us pray. Blessed are you, Lord God of mercy, who through your love for us have given us a marvelous example of charity and a sign of the great commandment of love for one another, through the valiant efforts of those willing to give themselves totally and unconditionally to the welfare and safety of your people. Today, we celebrate the dedication, hard work, and commitment to our community of our department members. And as we acknowledge today the triumph and willingness of that human spirit, may this awards and recognition ceremony be to your greater honor and glory. May all we do begin with you and happily come to completion in you, who are all good and deserving of our love and praise. Amen.
Thank you, Father Hamilton. So the department holds this ceremony to recognize the efforts of officers, civilians, and our partners with our law enforcement agencies for making the city of Easthampton a better and safer place to live and visit. Any officer may submit a nomination for another officer or supervisor who will nominate amazing acts on their shift with their personnel. This evening we're going to be presenting 112 awards for many acts worthy of consideration in the following categories: commendation, life-saving, meritorious conduct, merit award, community service, and valor. So the format that we're going to use is I'm going to call the recipients' names. As I call their name, come up to the stage, my stage left, and we'll present you with your award, and then exit the other side of the stage, please. So without further ado, the first awards to be presented are Community Service Awards. And the first award recipient is rather significant, Sibo. 10 years, Alice has really adopted us as members of her family. She hand delivers coffee to the guys and ladies and gentlemen on details, keep them warm in the winter and waters in the summer. Sometimes multiple times a day, and I've argued with her time and time again to stop doing it, but she's pretty persistent if you know Alice. She bakes goods weekly. Every Sunday she brings in baked goods to the police department for officers to enjoy. So with that, Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Alice Sibo with a Community Service Award for continued support of the Easthampton Police Department and putting up with smoking. No, there's no smacking on the stage. Our next award goes to two dopes, Rod Cameron and John Samako. They will tell you that they're dopes. Rod and John are owners of the Glendale Grill in Easthampton, and they've been supporters of the Easthampton Police Department and the City of Easthampton for years. Most recently, Rod and John were the recipients of the Easthampton St. Patrick's Parade Committee's Shamrock Award. They have generously hosted many department functions, including but not limited to holiday parties, receptions, promotions, retirement parties. They have allowed us to take over large parts of their restaurant and for these functions and always accommodate requests or needs or special menu items that we may have. They are truly the definition of community-oriented, and we really appreciate everything they do. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Rod and John with a Community Service Award. Next is Nick and Betty Dupre of Mickey D's Auto. In 2019, the Easthampton Police Department created a marine unit due to constant complaints and lawlessness on the waterways of the Connecticut River. One of the things that we had to consider while creating our marine unit was that there were many other items that needed to operate the police unit. One of these items was a chart plotter and a depth finder to operate safely in the shallow waters and nighttime operation. Betty and Nikki from Nikki D's, as in the past, have always supported the police department. They purchased top-line plotter from the Marine Unit. This chart plot has made the operation of the Marine Unit much safer and easier to operate. We should also mention that anytime we have a cruiser in need of body repair, Nick and Betty are always willing to help out, get our vehicles back quickly. We're grateful for everything they have done and continue to do for the Easthampton Police Department. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Betty, Nick, and the staff of Nikki D's with the Community Service Award for their continued support. Dr. James and Sandy Hayden. Oh, there. When preparing to start our K-9 unit several years ago, members of Easthampton approached the doc and Sandy, formerly Easthampton Animal Hospital, about obtaining veterinary services for our K-9. Graciously, not only did they agree to provide medical, health, and wellness services, they agreed to provide us with Gino's entire food supply through the product they sold in their business. They continued the service through their retirement in September of 2018, never once billing the police department for anything. Founding this K-9 unit truly would not have been possible without them. Thank you for all that you've done for our K-9 unit and helping us get it off the ground. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Dr. James and Sandy with Community Service. So along the same vein, the Easthampton Animal Hospital, currently Dr. Kirsten Losert, Dr. Bobby Kenna, and their staff. So when we heard that Doc was retiring with Sandy, we're concerned what that meant for the future of Gino's food. So when Dr. Losert took over, she was more than happy to continue to care for the canine unit in Gino. Dr. Losert and Dr. Bobby Kenna come with extensive background in veterinary services. Both doctors, along with their staff at the Easthampton Animal Hospital, have vital roles in continued success of our canine program. They continue to donate their services and supplies as well as Gino's food and supplements on a regular basis. In addition, on occasion, and when canine Gino shows a touch of what is known in the canine world as self-destructive side of his breed, they're always there for us at any time, ready to patch him up, get him healed, and back in service. We're very appreciative of the hospitality you've shown us and look forward to continuing our relationship together. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present the Easthampton Animal Hospital with a Community Service Award for the continued support. And we'll be accepting that on their behalf. Apparently the show tonight's all about Gino, like as usual. So Fusca fly and pet grooming. One of the things we need to consider when we started our canine unit was the work dogs need to be cleaned and groomed. When Scott and Mary Kate Murray of Fusca Fly and Pet Grooming heard that we had a new canine officer in town, they reached out to us and offered their services. From the moment Gino came to us, Scott, Mary Kate, and their staff, especially Lindsay Jakanowski, have provided their services and hospitality for Gino on a regular basis at no cost to the police department. Fusca Fly-In played a vital role in starting the program, and they are there for us, not only Gino's regular cleanings, but they make room in their busy schedule to get him back out. On short notice after muddy, dirty, and yes, even stinky canine deployments. We're grateful for everything they have done and will present them with a Community Service Award. This next award goes to William Wyman. In February of 2017, William, he was 8 years old at the time, came to the Easthampton Police Department bearing some useful gifts. While he was at our station for a tour with the Boy Scout a couple months earlier, he noticed a crate in which pets are temporarily housed in when they are found loose throughout the city. William decided he wanted to raise some money and purchase the beds and supplies so that the animals would be comfortable during their stay with us. William set up a donation booth at the Winterfest that year, successfully raised $105 to purchase these supplies, and received a little bit of help from Westfield Regional Animal Shelter. With that, William provided our department with a couple of soft beds, toys, supplies, and food for future guests. Thank you, William, for helping our city's lost pets feel more comfortable during the times they are often most scared. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present William Wyman with a Community Service Award for his thoughtful donation. So the next two awards are for our military banner program. It's going to be Sergeant Chad Alexander, Mike Martin, Jeremy Patton, James Sturgis, and Fred Moore. So in the spring of 2018, the Easthampton Police Department began an annual military banner program, selling personalized banners that are sponsored by city residents and displayed on utility poles throughout the downtown area. I'm sure you guys have all seen them. Funds raised for this program are donated to help local veterans in our community. Mike Martin of Military Banners was an integral part in making this program happen. Michael continues to organize a program every year with Sergeant Alexander. And throughout the duration of the military program, Jeremy Cotton, James Sturgis, and Fred Moore have donated their time, manpower, vehicles, equipment, and hanging brackets to adjust and remove banners at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season. With approximately 60 banners hung per season throughout the downtown area, it's not an easy task. Their efforts have made this program extremely successful. So we're proud to present all of them with the community service. The next Community Services Award goes to Pat Bruff. It might just be easier if Pat comes up here and tells you a little bit about himself. As I said earlier, Pat Bruff is Mr. Stanton. Whatever anybody needs in the community, Pat's usually one of the two top of the list of people to call. I can't really say a whole lot about Pat that hasn't been said or everybody already knows. For many years, he's been a staunch supporter of various initiatives throughout the city, and the community of Easthampton has benefited greatly by Pat and his wife Jen's presence and volunteer work. He's never not done something asked of him, and a lot of times things that aren't asked of him, he still does. Pat's a team leader for the Star on the Mountain, the Tree on the Pond, various golf charity events, and of course the unofficial city photographer. Thank you, Pat. In fact, just previous to this event, he took individual pictures and a group photo of all of your police officers at the front of City 32 paces, and that was not an easy task, I promise you. Pat's always been active with the police department. He comes out for the cookout with a cop, coffee with a cop, donating his time, talent, and of course, his opinions. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Pat Bruff with the Community Service Award. The next Community Service Award goes to the Duda family of the Oxbow Marina. In 2019, as we said earlier, the Easthampton Police Department created the Marine Unit on the waterways of the Oxbow River. What we didn't have was a place to dock the boat in a permanent location which would allow easy access to the river and easy deployment in case of an emergency out there. The Duda family of the Oxbow Marina not only offered to donate a slip for the Marine Unit, they also opened a spot closest to shore for quick access to the unit and easy unloading and loading of people in response to emergencies. We're very grateful to the Duda family and Oxbow Marina for everything they have done and continue to do for our department. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Shelley, Clay, and Nick Duda of the Oxbow Marina with a Community Service Award for their continued support. Another person that's very familiar with the city of Easthampton, Dan Whiteley of Whiteley Electrical. Dan's been a longtime supporter of the Easthampton Police Department. Dan has done a host of projects in electrical work at the Public Safety Complex to lighting the Tree on the Pond, Star on the Mountain every year. Anyone that knows Dan knows he'll drop everything he's doing to come help a member of our department or the community. It's been said countless times by countless people that Dan's truly one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Dan and his team have also supported us with informational and logistical needs for our officers in the department. In fact, Dan recently had to manufacture special light fixtures for our cell blocks because the replacement fixtures were no longer available. So it's safe to say Dan spent some time in EPD lockup again. The Easthampton Police Department is proud to present Dan Whiteley and Whiteley Electrical Service with Community Services Award for their contributions to the Easthampton Police Department and the City of Easthampton. So now we're going to move into the accommodation section of the program. Accommodation is a credible act worthy of recognition by the department due in part to training, devotion to duty, or service to the community. So as I call the officer's name, make your way up here, please, and I'll continue to read. Detective Andrew Boyer, Officer William Milkey, and Officer Francois Turgeon. On Monday, May 21st, 2018, Detective Boyer and Officer Turgeon responded to East Street for a report of a male yelling and walking in the roadway. Upon their arrival, they attempted to get this party out of the roadway to safety, but he completely refused to comply. Due to the volume of traffic, dark conditions of the roadway, Due to the volume of traffic, dark conditions in the roadway, officers attempted to escort the male out of the travel lane. The male swung at both officers and took the officers to the ground. Now, you can see the two officers on the end aren't the smallest guys in our job, but this guy was on something. The male began to hit officers and attack them. It appeared the male was under the influence of unknown substance. Officers deployed less lethal tools on their tool belts and finally got the man in custody. On one of the taser deployments, the male pulled the prongs out as the electricity was being delivered to him, and during another, he held onto the officer's taser where the electric arc was being emitted. In total, officers scuffled with this male for approximately, 10 minutes, which is a lifetime if anybody's done any of this kind of work. After Officer Milkey arrived, the male was handcuffed, taken into custody. He was evaluated and transferred to the regional lockup later that night. He called the police department after his release from court the next day, requesting that somebody tell him what happened because he had no recollection of it whatsoever. Officer Justin Malanowski. In the early morning hours of December 21st, 2016, Officer Malanowski was in the area of Pleasant Street. As he turned on the Ferry Street, he observed a male in the middle of the roadway attempting to strangle another male. The victim was trying to yell for help, but was flailing his arms because he was being choked when Officer Malanowski pulled up. Officer Malanowski radioed in for backup and placed the aggressor in handcuffs to detain him until other units arrived. Officer Malanowski was able to ascertain that the victim was attacked by the male, leaving a nearby bar. The suspect insisted that the victim was yelling at him and needed to take. The suspect was threatening the victim in front of Officer Malanowski and threatening to kill him. If Officer Malanowski did not intervene, it's most likely that this victim may have been seriously choked. Officer Malanowski saved the victim from further harm, immediately jumping into action and stopping this assault. Sergeant Chad Alexander and Officer Alona Derose. On September 3rd, 2019, Easthampton Police and Fire responded to Florence Road for a report of a serious motor vehicle crash with serious injury. Responding units were advised it was a single vehicle crash into the tree. When officers arrived, they found a small fire in the engine compartment and a lone female occupant trapped in the vehicle. Officers worked together through a very extensive extraction, and the crash was so severe that the vehicle's brake pedal was impaled in the female's body. The driver was later transported to Basely with serious life-threatening injuries. These efforts assisted in saving a life, getting the driver to the hospital, extracting her, and all officers were in great assistance as this was an all-hands-needed call. Gino and Detective Andrew Boyd. So Gino's up for the next two awards, not Andrew, but Gino. March 30th, our K-9 team was requested to respond to Hoyle to track a suspect in a drive-by shooting in a pursuit. The suspect bailed from the car, fled on foot, likely to be armed with a firearm. The thickly settled urban area was also heavily contained with pedestrian and police traffic. Our K-9 team began a track from the vehicle to search for the suspect. Gino tracked 1.5 blocks south and then changing direction. While they were tracking, they heard an update on the state police that the male party had stopped and matched the description a mile from where the car was, the exact direction that Gino was headed. Gino completed his track, ending at the location where the party in question was actually detained. The male was patted down for weapons, placed under arrest, and the suspect faced several felony gun-related charges. Witness later advised that the suspect had in fact initially went southbound from the car before turning around and running back, which is exactly what Gino did during his track. So great job, you guys. Not going around for a while? Same type of scenario. As often, our neighbors request mutual aid from Andrew and Gino. This one was to Northampton at the Hampshire Heights Apartments. They were notified a male attempted to stab his girlfriend and then held her hostage in an apartment so she couldn't call for help. They believe the suspect took off on foot in a wooded area behind the apartment where the incident took place. The weapon involved was located at the edge of the wood line behind the apartment. Our K-9 team began yelling announcements and started a track. Gino was focused on one particular area of the woods in front of him. He was already showing behavior changes that indicate proximity alert. Suddenly, the male stood up and emerged from the wooded area, surrendering and begging Detective Boyer not to let Gino loose, expressing his desire not to get bit. The subject was placed under arrest and charged with multiple felonies, including kidnapping. Good job.
Sorry.
Sergeant Eric Alexander and Officer Robert Fusca. You gonna get some comedy relief when you get up here? Give me a smell. On May 23rd, 2016, Southampton police requested mutual aid of their town for a suicidal male in the woods, possibly armed with a firearm. Sergeant Eric Alexander and Officer Robert Fusca responded to assist. Our officers entered the woods and assisted Southampton PD with locating and tracking the male party out of the woods. This included traveling with a patient on a backboard through thick woods, down steep embankments, through a river, up an embankment on the other side, waiting for the ambulance. These efforts assisted Southampton police in saving a life and getting this person the assistance he needed for help. All involved made a significant difference in the individual's life as well as the family. Dennis Scribner, Sergeant Eric Alexander, Sergeant Kyle Gribby, Detective Andrew Boyer, K9 Gino, and Officer Jeffrey Fish. On Christmas Eve 2018, in the morning, the Easthampton Police Department became aware that the Massachusetts State Police were searching the Route 5 area for a male suspect in a bank robbery that had occurred in Hatfield a short time earlier. State Police observed the suspect's vehicle on 91 and engaged in a short pursuit, where the suspect bailed out of his vehicle between the Easthampton City line and Delaney House in Hoyle. State Police requested assistance for the search. The officers before you arrived to assist in the search and called in for assistance, as well as Sergeant Gribby. Sergeant Gribby. All responding agencies joined the organized search. After several hours of searching, Easthampton officers deployed to the area of the Hoyle Canoe Club along the Connecticut riverbank. While commencing the search, the suspect fell out of a large tree of the roadway and began running right in front of our officers. Some of them engaged in a short pursuit. Yeah. Lieutenant Scribner and the state trooper cut off the subject with their cruisers. And the suspect then attempted to swim into the river when Lieutenant Scribner and the trooper took the suspect into custody. And they recovered a bag of stolen cash from the bank that he robbed. So, next up are merit awards. The merit award is presented to law enforcement officer for highly credible accomplishment, bringing a claim to themselves, the department, and or the police profession as a result of training, devotion to duty, or service to the public. So our first award goes to Sergeant Kyle Gribby. On March 26, 2016, officers assigned to the 4 to 12 shift responded to a report of a person stabbed on a bike path near Millside Park. Officers arrived and located a 14-year-old male that was stabbed in the stomach. The victim was treated at the scene by police and fire personnel and transported, where he underwent surgery. Sergeant Gribby responded to Bay State Medical Center and interviewed the victim once he was stable. The victim provided a statement to Sergeant Gribby and was very cooperative. Sergeant Gribby continued this investigation, and he discovered that the victim's statement did not appear to be accurate. Upon his release from the hospital, the victim came to the station and was re-interviewed by Sergeant Gribby. Sergeant Gribby was able to determine that the victim was not truthful as his original events. As a result of the investigation, the suspect, a 15-year-old, was identified and subsequently charged with assault and battery dangerous weapon. Sergeant Gribby's persistence and dedication to this investigation led to this case being solved and is the embodiment of our department's mission. So the next award is Detective Lieutenant Mark Popolarczyk, Lieutenant Scribner, Officer Louis Rivera, ATF Agent Brian Meehan, ATF Agent Tony DiPaolo, Assistant United States Attorney Neil Derose, and Assistant United States Attorney Steve Breslin. Throughout October and November of 2015, the Easthampton Police Department conducted an investigation into narcotic sales by a gentleman that lived on Summer Street in Easthampton. As the investigation progressed, it was suspected that this male was making and selling firearms out of his residence. On November 6, 2015, investigators from the Easthampton Police Department, the Hoyle Police Department, Massachusetts State Police, and agents from ATF and FBI conducted two different search warrants, which resulted in evidence seizure, including AR-15 rifle parts, frames, receivers, gun magazines and ammunition, rifle sights, shell casing, large amounts for marijuana grow, 9mm pistol, ammunition speed loaders, and other illegal weapons. The investigating officers executed these search warrants and searched multiple locations and identified and charged this male party with multiple felony charges. The officers worked tirelessly to ensure our community would be a safer place, and this suspect was documented and successfully prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. This investigation resulted in this person's sentence of 5 years in federal prison. And I'd just like to point out that these cases are made with the partnerships of both federal, state, and local law enforcement working together as a team. So thank you all. So the next award, Northampton PD Detective Sergeant Cory Robinson couldn't be with us tonight, but he's an award recipient. Lieutenant Mark Papalarczyk and Assistant U.S. Attorney against Steve Breslow. In December 2014, Lieutenant Papalarczyk and Sergeant Robinson began a joint investigation from a cyber tip sent from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children regarding an image to be child pornography that was sent to the Facebook account of an individual who lived in Stanton. After months of investigating the cyber tip, investigators were able to execute several search warrants in the following communities: Easthampton, Southampton, West Springfield, Chicopee, Southwick, Westfield, and Woodstock, Connecticut, in relation to the possession, distribution, and manufacture of child pornography. Additionally, multiple search warrants were executed on individuals' online emails accounts, resulting in several individuals being identified, charged, and sentenced by the U.S. Attorney's Office, as well as the local district courts, for the same distributing of child pornography. Sergeant Robinson and Lieutenant Papalarczyk partnered with several other local, state, and federal agencies in conducting numerous child exploitation investigations over this 3-year period, including the investigation into the subject that resided in Easthampton. Because of the tremendous amount of work and the solid case that these investigators built, and the prosecutorial work of AUSA Breslow, this individual pled guilty in U.S. federal court and is facing up to 15 years in federal prison. And I'll just add that these kind of cases are more, they're super hard to work. They're more pronounced than you realize. My detective bureau is continuously working these investigations, and it takes special people to do this work, and the results that they get after a significant period of time. And then the same, it goes for the prosecutor's office. These are very difficult cases, but I applaud these guys for doing it. This next award, Captain William Kelly, Detective Lieutenant Mark Papalarczyk, Sergeant Chad Alexander, Sergeant Eric Alexander, Detective Boyer, Officer William Milkey, ATF Agent Chris Bisnu, and Hoyle Police Lieutenant Jim Ellis. This one's a little long, but it's a good read. On February 5th in 2017, Easthampton Police Dispatch started receiving multiple 911 calls about explosions coming from the area behind Mill 180 on Pleasant Street. This event happened to coincide with the most memorable Patriots Super Bowl comeback in history, where the Pats came back to win 34-28. Upon investigation, officers located 10 explosive devices in the southern bank of Lower Mill Pond. Of these 10, 9 had been detonated and 1 was still intact. This lone device was later rendered safe and secured as evidence. As this investigation progressed, investigators were able to trace this lone unexploded device to a resident here on Pleasant Street in Easthampton. Multiple search warrants were later executed over several days, which resulted in the seizure of several pieces of evidence, including firing modules, fire transmitters, coils of wire, components, parts, incendiary devices, chemicals. As a matter of fact, they had to evacuate 142 Pleasant Street because some of these chemicals were located in a part of that mill building, and had they gone off, they would have taken out like half the building. That's how dangerous this was. Taser, handgun, ammunition, AR-15 components, loaded rifles, plans on how to manufacture, and videos on how to make explosive compounds. All the officers involved in this case assisted in responding to the scene, locating evidence, conducting search warrants, and identifying and charging and later convicting the subject on multiple felony charges. Lieutenant Albert even gave Captain Kelly a crash course in media relations at the time. Many of these officers worked tirelessly for days on end trying to ensure our city was safe and that the suspect was apprehended and disarmed as soon as possible. This resulted in a prison sentence of 5 years for this individual. Okay. Lieutenant Scribner, Detective Boyer, same crew. Officer William Milkey, and Sergeant 3 Rogers.
Hi, baby. On July 3rd, 2018, Easthampton dispatch was inundated with calls resulting from a severe thunderstorm that rolled through and caused damage throughout the city. Then calls began coming in about a house that was struck by lightning on Hannonbrook Drive. Upon hearing this, the officers responded, knowing that the fire department was stretched thin with other calls in progress as well. When they arrived, heavy smoke was seen billowing out of the roof of the eaves of the home, and it should be noted that the temperature at the time was approximately 100 degrees with very high humidity. The first engine arrived with only 2 available firefighters. Officers immediately began stretching hose lines and tapping fire hydrants while firefighters prepared to make entry into the home. This is not something unusual that our officers do. We often assist the fire department in this manner when all hands are needed at a fire. Throughout the rest of the incident, officers assisted in changing bottles for the firefighters' air packs, setting up cooling stations as the firefighters exited the house, and bringing supplies back and forth from the station and the fire apparatus. These officers displayed the definition of teamwork between the police and fire department. Captain Chris Patton, Sergeant Brian Ross, Lieutenant Scribner, Sergeant Chad Alexander, Sergeant Kyle Gribby, Detective Boyer, Officer Stephen Milton. On March 27, 2016, which was Easter Sunday, at approximately 8:20 p.m., our dispatch received a 911 call from a female on Windsor Circle reporting that there was an unwanted male armed with a knife locked in a bedroom in her residence. Dispatch also was notified that there were children in the home. The entire 4 to 12 shift responded. Upon arrival, they were notified that the caller's boyfriend threatened to assault the caller's ex-husband with a knife, and it was believed the male suspect had barricaded himself in an upstairs bedroom. As a result, officers made a tactical entry and breached the bedroom door to find that the male was not inside. He had actually fled out the window prior to the officer's arrival. Due to concern for public safety, a search of the suspect began in the surrounding neighborhoods. State police were contacted for canine and the air wing to assist. Numerous off-duty officers living in the area deployed out of their own homes to assist in bringing the suspect into custody. Neighbors throughout the Plains section of the city were calling 911, reporting a male matching the suspect's description running through their yards. Approximately an hour and a half after the call, Captain Chris Patton saw the man near the pipeline off of Plain Street and requested units to respond there. Police units quickly converged around the area. The male party was ordered to come out but was not compliant. Lieutenant Scribner and Sergeant Alexander entered the pipeline area, located the subject, and took him into custody without further incident. He was charged with multiple offenses, including an outstanding warrant. This call is just one example of our dedicated officers leaving their families, again, it was Easter Sunday, and springing into action when we were needed to protect our community when people's lives were at risk. The next merit award is Captain Chris Patton, Detective Lieutenant Papalarczyk, Lieutenant Scribner, Detective Boyer, Officer William Milkey, and Officer Stevens. On March 20th, 2016, dispatch units to the area of Oliver Street were reported of a female that was just robbed at gunpoint. Officers immediately began investigating this robbery by searching the scene, speaking with witnesses, and speaking with the victim, who was a 16-year-old female. The victim additionally reported to investigators that a few days earlier, she met one of the suspects on the bike path in Easthampton. This same suspect, along with 3 other individuals, picked up the victim in Hadley and drove her to a secluded section on Oliver Street in Easthampton, where one of the suspects demanded money and pointed a pistol at her. The victim reported she gave the suspects $270, and then they left her on the side of the road. Due to the diligence of the investigators on this case, all 3 individuals were identified and charged with armed robbery. Shock, Gino again. Joining Gino on this one is local police canine Kai and Officer Amanda Malinowski.
No, they Kai hates Gino.
Kai's not talking to Gino right now. On October 27, 2017, Southampton police requested Detective Boyer and Gino respond to Cheryl Lane in Southampton for a report of a missing male party. Southampton police requested a track as the male party was believed to have left on foot, and there were concerns for his physical and mental health. Upon our K-9 team's arrival, they were advised that it was believed the male had been hiding for some 3 or 4 hours, and it was unknown what kind of clothing he was wearing, and the weather was cold. Detective Boyer and Gino began a track in the rear of the house and tracked approximately 2 to 2.5 miles through a thickly wooded area behind the home. Gino eventually came to a property full of storage containers and garages, but needed a break. Detective Boyer requested a response from Long Meadow PD, and Officer Amanda Van Busker and Kai arrived. They traveled to the area that our K-9 team was stopped and continued to track from there. Kai tracked through the property around some buildings to the rear of the garage where the male party was located in crisis. Both K-9 officers and Southampton Police escorted the male back to the house where he was able to be treated and transported by ambulance for evaluation. Without locating this male, this situation could have ended quite differently, but instead he was able to get the help he needed. Thank you both. Don't go too far, Gino.
He's looking back.
Put the dog in for a race. On January 27, 2018, officers were dispatched to the mill property on Ferry Street for reported trespassers on the property. Several of these buildings at the time were unsafe and marked to signify their dangers to enter. Officers set up a perimeter around the property, and K-9 announcements were made via the PA system in the cruisers. Our K-9 team entered the property and began to search the area. As a result of this search, 2 juveniles surrendered to the perimeter officers once they heard Gino was on the scene. The juveniles informed that they had entered to check out the property, but watched at least 2 adult parties known to them force entry through one of the buildings. Detective Boyer heard people moving inside the building and could see light from a cell phone inside. Detective Boyer made entry with Gino and began a building search after providing ample opportunity for the suspects to surrender. Gino pulled Detective Boyer to the far side of the building where he began to show behavior changes of a person nearby. As Gino pulled into the rear stairwell of the dark building, a voice yelled and 2 male parties surrendered to the K-9 team. Both parties were arrested on felony charges. As well, they had warrants for their arrest. They were unfazed by the safety risks they put all the officers in, as well as themselves. Lieutenant Scribner. During the early morning hours of May 30th, 2017, officers were dispatched to F.L. Roberts on Northampton Street for a possible breaking and entering. The newspaper deliverer observed a glass door was smashed and the alarm was sounded. Lieutenant Scribner and other officers began checking the area after the break was confirmed. Our K-9 team was called in to assist. It was unknown if the suspect left on foot or in a vehicle. Lieutenant Scribner turned around to check a nearby street where he saw a minivan which was coming from the direction of the crime that the officers were responding to. He located a male party walking down the street, sweating profusely. After questioning the male party, his story wasn't added up, and Lieutenant Scribner requested another officer stand by as they continued to investigate. As Lieutenant Scribner got to the end of the street, he observed a matching minivan, the description of one that he saw leaving when he was responding there. He checked the minivan and saw 2 people were hiding with their seats reclined in the minivan off the side street. While Lieutenant Scribner was investigating, Gino and Andrew arrived and began to track from the store. Gino tracked south on Northampton Street directly to where Lieutenant Scribner stopped the mail that he first came across. Lieutenant Scribner began talking to the parties and observed a large amount of loose cash, cartons of cigarettes inside the van. They went to the store and they viewed video and determined the suspects had been the ones that appeared to break into the store. All three parties were placed under arrest based on the evidence, and they pled guilty in court. And there's currently an outstanding warrant for one of the suspects involved. The next one's not Gino, I promise. Dispatch Supervisor Brenda Therian Shoup. In the onset of an emergency, our dispatcher is the first voice that a caller hears on the other side of the phone. We recognize oftentimes when the community is calling 911, they're experiencing some of the worst events in their lives. Dispatchers are responsible for calming the caller down, obtaining necessary information, dispatching appropriate resources, and sometimes providing emergency medical instructions over the phone, which we have a bunch of examples of those later on. On December 21st, 2018, the Easthampton Public Safety Dispatch Center took one of those tragic calls. Dispatch Supervisor Brenda Therian Shoup received a call from a frantic resident that her 5-year-old daughter fell down the stairs and was unresponsive. While Brenda was on the phone with the mother advised that the child wasn't breathing. Throughout this heartbreaking call, Brenda remained calm, compassionate, obtained all the necessary information from the mother, was able to calm her down and talk her through emergency dispatch instructions until first responders arrived. We know that Brenda's actions made a difference with the mother of the child, attempting to provide comfort and understanding through this horrific event. This is just one of the ways Brenda remains a role model for the leader for our dispatch team. And unfortunately, the child did not make it. I wish I had a happier ending for that one, but Brenda did an amazing job with the mom on the phone. It was gut-wrenching. So our office manager, Cindy Perry. Cindy hates us well. Cindy's been the police department's office manager for over 28 years. That means she's had to train 4 police chiefs. Imagine how much fun that was. Cindy's the backbone of our family here at EPD. She's our matriarch. I'm being yelled at for saying that. And she will be very tough to replace. I told Cindy that when she retires, I'm going with her. Cindy's duties are vast. Payroll, scheduling, supervising crossing guards, billing, accounts payable, training, grants, record keeping, keeping my schedule straight. She's the glue that keeps us all together. Oftentimes she'll change her schedule, work from home, work holidays. She comes in on the weekends, stays after hours, just to make sure that our family has everything that we need to do our jobs. Cindy, your hard work for this department is noticed by all of your EPD family. We thank you for your continued dedication and keeping us all in line.
You should make her checks.
Hi, Captain.
All right.
Captain Chris Patton, Lieutenant Scribner, Lieutenant Kopalarczyk, Sergeant, both Sergeants Alexanders, Detective Rogowski, Officer William Milkey, and Officer Robert Fusca. And this is the last merit award. On Friday, March 5th, 2015, dispatch received a call from a hospital regarding that a man on Plain Street was undergoing a mental health crisis. This was in 2015. The man told clinicians that if they called anyone, he would shoot the first responders that arrived with a handgun that he had. Officers proceeded to obtain a Section 12 for the male party and responded to the area of the residence. Officers evacuated the area and attempted to get the man to come out of the house. I negotiated on the phone with the man for several hours while officers were posted outside the home. Throughout the entire time, the officers showed great patience as the situation was beginning to escalate. Eventually, in the early afternoon, the man emerged from the home, walked towards officers, keeping his hands in his pocket and refusing to show his hands. After more negotiation and de-escalation by the officers, the man was detained without further incident. He was transported to the hospital and provided all the services that he needed, but his handgun was not located. A few days later, a female from another residence called our station and reported that she found a handgun in her home with the serial number scratched off. It was determined that this caller's daughter was in a relationship with the man that we had previously dealt with. The caller said that her daughter was held against her will at gunpoint by this man until she was able to escape on her own. At some point during the incident of the holding of the female hostage, the handgun was fired inside the bedroom of the home. Sergeant Alexander and Officer Fusca went to the residence and retrieved the firearm. It was determined that this incident occurred just before the standoff with police on March 5th. Lieutenant Scribner and Lieutenant Papalarczyk later obtained a search warrant for the man's residence. They found bullet fragments on the floor and other evidence to corroborate the victim's story. Charges were subsequently filed. All these officers responded to the scene, located evidence, conducted search warrant, and charged the man on multiple serious charges. In addition, an illegal firearm was removed from our community. This investigation resulted in the man being sentenced to a lengthy term in state prison. But moreover, great patience and the de-escalation by our police officers undoubtedly saved lives. So now we're moving on to the Life-Saving Awards. The Life-Saving Award is presented for an act performed by an employee or citizen whose prompt and alert actions resulted in saving of a human life. So this first award goes to Officer Robert Fusca. On March 31st, 2017, while Officer Fusca was on vacation in Nassau, Bahamas, he was alerted by the frantic screams of a mother who was running with a lifeless child in her arms up the beach. Realizing this woman was running from the direction of the ocean and that the child must have been pulled for the water, Officer Fusca, without hesitation, sprung into action. When he took the child from the distraught mom, Officer Fusca observed water coming out of the child's mouth and instructed a bystander to call 911, while Officer Fusca began CPR on the child. After multiple cycles of CPR and copious amounts of water expelled from the child began to breathe on her own. Officer Fusca continued to stay with the child and mom while they waited for the ambulance some 20 minutes later. Officer Fusca's devotion to duty, even in a foreign country, acted without hesitation, and his resuscitation efforts resulted in saving this child's life from what would have been a horrific drowning.
Yeah.
Captain Chris Patton and Officer Stephen Milton. Where's your partner?
Let me hang it.
On August 18, 2016, Officer Steve Milkey and Captain Chris Patton were dispatched to a residence on Mount Tom Ave for a report of an unresponsive female. The caller advised that the 70-year-old female was choking. Upon their arrival, they found the victim on the floor, slumped over. After assessing the situation, officers determined that the woman had a fully obstructed airway and was not breathing. The woman was not alert and her lips were turning blue. Officer Milkey executed the Heimlich maneuver using 3 thrusts to the female's abdomen. On the final thrust, Officer Milkey felt that there was an object in the woman's throat that had moved slightly, but the victim was still not breathing. Captain Patton attempted to open the woman's airway with success, and the officer started CPR. Due to the life-saving measures of Captain Patton and Officer Milkey, the woman started to have a faint pulse and was now breathing on her own again. The woman was then transported to the hospital and made a full recovery. The next life-saving award is Officer William Milkey and Fire Captain Sean O'Leary. On November 15, 2015, the Easthampton Fire Department was dispatched to the Industrial Parkway for a male party with chest pains. All of the EFD ambulances were out of the city and on other calls, so the only firefighter responding was Captain O'Leary. Upon hearing this call dispatched and the circumstances, Officer William Milkey also responded to the scene. Upon their arrival, the first responders found a male party who was in and out of consciousness. While waiting for the ambulance to arrive, the male party went into a full cardiac arrest. Officer Milkey and Captain O'Leary started CPR and attached an AED. CPR was continued until the ambulance from Northampton arrived and transported the party to the hospital. Thanks to the great teamwork, as often displayed between EPD and EFD, Officer Milkey and Captain O'Leary, with very limited resources at their disposal, saved this man's life. Detective Boyer, Sergeant Kyle Gribby, and Officer Haley Gutt. On July 19, 2018, Easthampton Police and Fire were dispatched to Pleasant Street for an unresponsive female. Upon arrival, officers found the calling party had started CPR on the female. After assessing the female, it was clear to the officers that she was in cardiac arrest. Detective Boyer took over CPR from the calling party, and officers attached an AED. Sergeant Gribby, Officer Haley, Gaudette, and Detective Boyer continued CPR until the ambulance arrived. And just prior to transport, officers were advised that the woman had regained a pulse and blood pressure and was breathing on her own. She was transported to the hospital where she made a full recovery. With the quick actions of these officers, this woman received life-saving care and was able to rejoin our community. I almost needed some help on that last one. Now, check it. Detective Boyer, Officer Alona Derose, and Dispatcher Kirsten Cory. On March 14, 2019, officers were dispatched to a residence on Plain Street for a report of a male party that had been electrocuted. Due to the frantic nature of this call, it was unsure if the male party was responsive. Dispatcher Kirsten Coit immediately dispatched out information that she was able to get and continued to speak with the caller. While on the way to the call, officers were advised that CPR was in progress by the caller and the male party was unresponsive. Dispatcher Coit provided clear, informative, emergency medical CPR instructions to the caller over the phone until officers could get there. Detective Boyer was nearby at his residence. Upon hearing the call, he responded and was able to arrive on scene very quickly. He found the man in front of the doorway laying on the ground, and the caller advised he had been changing a light bulb when she heard him collapse. After a brief assessment, it was determined that the male was in cardiac arrest, and Detective Boyer took over CPR from the caller. And all the time updating dispatch of the patient conditions. Officer Derose arrived, attached an AED, and assisted Andrew with CPR. A short time later, the ambulance arrived. As care was being transferred, the male party began to breathe on his own. Prior to transport, the fire captain advised officers on scene that the heart monitor showed readings consistent with an aftermath of a heart attack. Officers' quick life-saving actions and decision-making saved this man's life, who was electrocuted and had a heart attack, and then made a full recovery. This next life-saving award goes to Sergeant Eric Alexander, Officer William Milkey, Detective Ryan Murphy, and Dispatch Supervisor Brenda Therianshoe. On August 15th, 2019, officers were dispatched to a resident on East Street for a report of an unresponsive female. The caller advised that a 59-year-old female had fallen and collapsed on the garage floor. Detective Supervisor Brenda Therianshoe immediately began emergency medical CPR instructions over the phone and providing necessary treatment prior to the officer's arrival. Upon the officer's arrival, they found the caller administering CPR under Dispatcher Shoup's instructions to the woman. Detective Ryan Murphy, Sergeant Eric Alexander took over CPR. Officer William Milkey attached to the AED as CPR continued. The ambulance then arrived and began assisting in the life-saving measures. Again, just prior to transport, officers were advised that a pulse was regained and the woman was now breathing on her own. This next life-saving award goes to Kendall Sullivan, Officer Alona Derose, and Officer Justin Malanowski. On November 3rd, 2018, dispatch received a 911 call reporting that there was an unresponsive woman at a residence on Pepin Ave. The caller, Kendall Sullivan, was only 7 years old at the time, and she advised that her mom was on the kitchen floor and she could not wake her up. As emergency responders were dispatched, Officer Alona Derose was off duty but in the area when she heard the call come in. Officer Derose immediately responded, and upon arrival, Kendall was waiting for officers at the door. She led officers to her mother, who was found with no pulse and not breathing. Officer Derose, with great empathy, consoled Kendall and removed her from the room as Officer Malanowski provided initial life-saving measures until the ambulance arrived. The woman was transported to the hospital, where she made a full recovery. Without Kendall making that vital 911 call to get her mom help during her dire time of need, and Officer Derose and Malanowski's quick response, that outcome could have been much different. For her incredible actions and bravery that preserved the life of her mom, Kendall's presented with this life-saving award, along with Officers Derose and Malinowski. Detective Ryan Murphy, Officer Mickey Seekey Jr., and Dispatcher Katie Ebel. On May 24th, 2020, officers were dispatched to a residence on Northampton Street for a man who was having a seizure. While on the way to the call, dispatcher dispatch advised CPR was in progress by the caller, and dispatcher Tebow was instructing CPR over the phone. Upon their arrival, Officer Seeky and Detective Murphy took over CPR. They took over CPR and applied the AED, and CPR and shocks were continued. The patient was then transported to the hospital where his condition improved, and he later made a full recovery because of the pre-hospital treatment provided by the dispatcher and responding officers and ambulance personnel. So our last award for the program is a Meritorious Conduct Award. The Meritorious Conduct Award is presented to law enforcement officer for highly unusual accomplishment or act of heroism in the field of law enforcement, reflecting their devotion to duty under adverse conditions. The first award goes to Captain Chris Patton. Standing in will be Captain William Kelly. On May 4th, 2016, a Be on the Lookout was put out by Northampton PD for a vehicle involved in an abduction of a female party who was forced into a vehicle by a male operator. Captain Patton was on his lunch break in his personal vehicle. He had a license plate written on his hand, which he often did. He was watching plates go by him as he traveled back to the station. He observed a vehicle pass by him on West Street that was one digit off from the plate that was called in originally. Based on his experience, Captain Patton called the plate in the dispatch and turned around and followed the vehicle. Because the license plate was one digit off from what witnesses reported, it could have been likely or unlikely that the vehicle would be different. While dispatch was confirming the plate, Captain Patton noticed the passenger door of the vehicle kept opening several times, as if the passenger was trying to bail out of the car. At that time, Captain Patton clocked the vehicle speed at 60 miles an hour. He traveled behind it from a distance, awaiting for the arrival of cruisers, as they were now entering Southampton. Easthampton and Southampton cruisers arrived in the area where Captain Patton was, and the suspect accelerated and took off, passing vehicles. All of the cruisers had lost sight of the vehicle when Captain Patton then came back upon it, rolled over on the side of the roadway. He immediately requested an ambulance and ran to the vehicle. Captain Patton and Southampton Chief Ian Illingsworth had to smash out the vehicle, render aid to the victim, and then pull the suspect out of the car while he was still fighting officers. He was taken into custody and charged for numerous kidnapping and assault charges. Captain Patton's meritorious conduct of taking initiative to find and follow the suspect vehicle in his own vehicle out of concern for the victim most likely saved her from violent harm. The next meritorious conduct, Sergeant Brian Ross, Officer Todd Joseph, and Detective Ryan Murphy. During the early morning hours of October 2nd, 2017, Easthampton Dispatch received a call reporting a fire on the roof of Snap Fitness on Union Street. Upon their arrival, Sergeant Ross, Officer Todd Joseph, and Detective Murphy confirmed an active fire on the roof of the building. Officers quickly shut the road down as morning commute was about to start. They entered the smoke-filled stairwell to the second floor of the building, where they discovered multiple people in the apartment there that did not know the building was on fire. Officers were able to evacuate all the people in the apartment, including a young child. Once officers were comfortable that the building was empty, they exited and met the fire department. They remained on scene and assisted the fire department with their operations and maintaining traffic and investigating by speaking to tenants to find out what happened. An investigation by the State Fire Marshal's Office later determined that the cause of the fire to be careless disposal of smoking materials. The meritorious conduct and bravery of these officers that morning most likely saved several lives in that building. That's going to come as a shock to everybody, but our last Meritorious Conduct Award goes to Detective Andrew Boyer. On July 4th, 2017, dispatch received a call from a woman at a residence on West Street, reporting that her house was on fire. She attempted to extinguish the fire herself, but was unsuccessful. Detective Boyer was the first officer on scene. Upon his arrival, he observed thick, black smoke pouring out of the back of the house. The resident was laying on the front lawn in distress and covered in soup. It appeared she had suffered significant smoke inhalation and was having trouble breathing. As Andrew tended to her, she was reported yelling that her dog was inside, and that was all she had. An off-duty nurse was passing by and stopped to assist. She was now tending to the fire victim as Detective Boyer called for an ambulance. Andrew then ran to the back of the house where he observed heavy fire. The victim was attempting to get up and go back inside the house for her dog. Detective Boyer, being familiar with the house, advised her that he would try to locate the dog in an effort to calm her. The nurse stayed on scene until fire department arrived. Andrew ran around the back into the smoke-filled three-room seasonal room off the back of the house, which led to an open kitchen door. He observed thick, heavy black smoke conditions inside the home, making it impossible for him to see further in. When he got down low to the floor in the doorway, he could see the dog just inside the kitchen, a few feet away from where he was positioned. Andrew reached in, rescued the dog, bringing him outside. The victim was overjoyed and again stated that the dog was the only thing she had left in her life. Both the victim and the dog made a full recovery. Detective Boyer's meritorious conduct saved this woman's dog and potentially saved her from going back in the house to retrieve her dog. I assume he would have done the same thing for Gino. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to congratulate all the award recipients on a job well done. This ceremony is dedicated to the men and women of law enforcement who, by their very oath, are sworn to protect and serve our community. You should have also noticed the tremendous amount of teamwork that it takes to do some of these investigations, whether the officers are on the same department, working together, or reaching out to other law enforcement agencies for their assistance and expertise. The common goal is to serve our community and get the job done. Teamwork is imperative for what we do in the police service. To all the officers, continue to wear your uniform proudly and never dishonor the badge that you wear, or as Captain Kelly will remind you, the badge. Be professional and remember that character, integrity, and respect are not your right to possess. They must be constantly earned. I will now like to call on Father William Hamilton to close our ceremony because I can't remember if it's a benediction or the other thing. Father Hamilton. I get it right one of these things.
This one's the benediction.
Yeah, take it out.
Let us pray. Almighty God, whose great power and eternal wisdom embraces the universe, watch over all police officers everywhere. We give you thanks this day for the members of this department who have shown this triumph and willingness of the human spirit through their selfless dedication to preserving the peace, our safety, and our protection. Protect them from harm during the performance of their duties. Help them keep our streets and neighborhoods safe day and night. We commend them to your loving care because we know their duty is at times dangerous. We remember with great love our sisters and brothers in law enforcement who have paid the ultimate sacrifice in laying down their lives for us, preserving our safety, our liberties, and protection. Take them into the eternal care of your loving hand, and send the consolation of your Spirit upon their loved ones, families, friends, and departments, and that we will always have been known to have never forgotten. Give to the members of this department strength and courage in their daily assignments. Grant them your almighty protection, and unite them safely with their families and friends after their duty is complete. May God's choicest blessings be upon us all this night. May God bless the city of Easthampton, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the great United States of America. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Thank you for all for coming. Congratulations to all award recipients, and we'll see you next year.